Our fiscal policy number 2 is going to be focusing on taxes, the budget deficit, and things of that nature. So the first one is, and I'll put the questions up here so you can look at those before you watch this. Type of taxes. We have progressive, regressive, and proportional. Progressive, the more you make, the more you are taxed. That's our income tax. The more money you make, the more they're going to take out of your check. Regressive, the less you make, the more you are taxed. That's sales. If I make $50,000 and somebody else makes $20,000 and we go buy the same TV, essentially the sales tax we pay on that TV is going to hurt the person who makes less than the person who makes more. So the less you make, the more you're taxed. And proportional, everyone pays the same tax rate. And there's always, this is always proposed, but we would lose a lot of money that way. We'd have no money coming in, and we're already at a deficit, which means we spend more than we bring in. So we got to figure that's not necessarily. Ideally, yes, it sounds fantastic if we can make it work, but it's just the situation we're in. It's not going to happen. Here's some types of taxes, and are they progressive or regressive? So you have sales. I already kind of told you that one. Federal income. I've told you that one. State income. Then you have excise, sin tax, property tax, dividend tax, and capital gains tax. We're going to focus a little bit on what these are in class, and I'll give you some percentages on these numbers. But these are some of the taxes we pay. In here, excise, sin, you got alcohol, cigs, and you have oil, cell phone. You pay tax on a lot of that stuff. You just don't realize it. Now, looking at these different taxes, this is how we generate money from a government. And so what do we do with this money? Is we spend it on certain things, and here is just a level of government chart. You want to copy this down. Number one tax, which means the number one source of revenue, but the number one expenditure. So level of government, you got federal. Number one tax is personal income. That's FICA. But number one expenditure, Social Security. That's an entitlement program that was created, bigger government with FDR, and this is becoming a problem because all the baby boomers are getting ready to retire. With all the baby boomers getting ready to retire, there's not going to be enough money put in to be able to pay them. So they're saying Social Security is going to run out because life expectancy is longer, more people are retiring than putting into Social Security. So when you and I retire, there's not going to be any money left over. So don't count on this. There's been ways we could privatize it, we could do other things with it, but don't count on it. Another level of government is state. And with state, you have sales and excise tax. And number one expenditure is education. They put all their money into schools and school districts. Not necessarily the facilities of schools, but just schools and school districts themselves and funding programs and education. And is there some waste here? Yes. Do we need to stop some of the waste? I would totally agree. But this is our number one expenditure. And local, you have property tax, and where does that money go? That goes also to education, to pay for education. And we'll talk about property tax today in class. So know this chart. You will see it again on a test. So looking at budget and things of this nature, let's take a look at the budget, or let's take a look at the fiscal years. This means this is your budget, how much money you have to spend in those years. And most of it, especially in the federal level, if you don't spend the money that's allocated to you, then you don't get that money the next year. So it's like spend it or lose it kind of a mentality. So you would think you'd be, if you save the government money, they would reward you. No, that means next year when they're making the budget, they're going to give you less money. So often agencies start spending rapidly on things, like you might have the military spend money on a $500 hammer or a $5,000 broom just to make sure we're spending our budget. So the federal year is from October 1st to September 30th, and the California fiscal year is July 1st to June 30th. So in that, this is, we create a budget every year, and that's the money allocated to certain programs. And so the budget process is first, the budget is, the agencies prepare their estimates of budget needs and present them to the OMB, which is the Office of Management and Budget. Amount requested is typically based upon the amount granted in the previous year, plus inflation and additional costs. So That's what they take into consideration, but they also take into account entitlement programs. This is federal money that is automatically spent each year without congressional review on various programs. The negative thing about the entitlement programs is there are all these entitlement programs that are created, which you want to be an entitlement program if you're a government agency. That means your job is safe. But when we have so many of those, you don't have any money left over for anything else. So sometimes our hands are tied because we have all these entitlement programs that we've created. So the OMB takes that into consideration, listens to the agencies, and then reviews these requests and makes recommendations to the president. And I'll put that here. So I didn't put that on my notes. And then the president then submits the bill to Congress. So the recommendations are made to the president reviews them, and OMB recommends and submits the budget to Congress. So the president will review them, they'll send them to Congress. Once Congress gets it, then what's going to happen is the Congressional Budget, Congressional Budget Office, CBO, nonpartisan bureaucratic agency, does an analysis of the president's budget to check on the OMB. It's a check and balance system that we have. Then it gets sent to committees. You have roles of budget, ways and means, finance, and appropriations. In these committees, in the different houses, they look at the budget, say, try to make changes, advise the president, say we can do this, we can't do this. And they also take in consideration Congress is going to get input from lobbyists and agencies, or they're going to get the different agencies out there within government, bureaucratic agencies are going to lobby for the reason why their program is beneficial to government. In order for the bill to pass, you need a majority vote from both houses, and then the Government Accountability Office is a watchdog agency that ensures the money is spent as prescribed. So the next two steps are, in the budget process, you have political influences, that's the third one, and you have political party differences. Again, what we're dealing with right now is a fiscal cliff. You can put that here. You have interest groups, political action committee influence, and then the iron triangles. Remember, the iron triangle is congressional committee, bureaucracy, and interest groups. They're all looking out for each other to make sure that their job is secure, because if something goes away, then they lose their job, they lose their spot on the congressional committee, and the interest group, they lose their job as well. So they're all looking out for one another. And then finally you have public opinion. Public opinion matters because what the people say and what the people want to spend their money on. Again, right now it's kind of the fiscal cliff. President Obama's taking to the people using Twitter rather than go to Congress. And the last thing on the budget process is the presidential action. He can sign or veto the entire taxing and spending bill, and Congress can override with a 2/3 vote in both houses. So that's the budget process, and we're creating it. And right now, like we talked about earlier, we are in a deficit. And the question then becomes, why deficit spending? And what is a deficit? And this is just basically when the expenditures exceed income. They exceed what we are bringing in. And so the reasons why we deficit spend, and the first one's wars. And if we're in a war, you're going to have to spend more than you bring in. You got emergencies. Think about national 9/11 and natural Katrina and Sandy. And you also have government programs that are getting bigger and changing with times. This is one you can think about healthcare right now with Obama. And then you also have economic crisis, recession, depression, and inflation. They make the government overspend. Think of Keynesian economics here, trying to pump money back into the economy. How do you fix this, though? That's the big question. How do you stop? So here's 4 ideas that are just proposed. You can increase revenue, raise taxes, but what's wrong with that? I'm just asking the question, is there something wrong with that? People are going to like this one. Probably not. So you got to think about that if you propose this idea. Another one would be decrease expenditures. Decrease spending. Make government more efficient. What a novel concept, right? But again, what's going to be wrong with this? You're going to have probably the iron triangles are going to run into this and say, wait a minute, this is not fair. This is not what necessarily we want. And you got to think about what's going to get cut. What do you cut? Think about it. What are you going to cut? Next one's a balanced budget law. The only problem is you got to think about this. When you make a law, who overspends? The president prepares the budget, so the president overspends. Okay, then who also enforces the law? Make sure that Congress and other agencies pass it. The president does that. Then who's going to call him out on that? The Attorney General, who he appointed, with with Congress helping him. So I doubt that that's going to happen. So this one's difficult, a balanced budget law, or you can do a balanced budget amendment. And what this would do is, this has been proposed in the past numerous times, but usually either the House or the Senate shut it down, kill it because of divided government. What this basically does is makes it illegal for president to overspend, therefore making the president violate the Constitution. Therefore, you can get the president kicked out of office. So there's the reasons, some issues that are here for this. Alrighty, I'll post the questions, then we'll answer the questions after, or before. You'll have them, you write them down before and you answer them after. Alrighty, talk to you later.